We're recording. And now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, there we go. You'll have access to these slides afterwards as well. So again, if you are a note taker and you like to just get everything out of your head as you're thinking about it, go for it. But know that you will have access to all of this afterwards. So first off, this is the workshop that you're in, just in case you weren't aware, because that's always the first thing that we should establish. Second thing that we should establish is that I'm Lucy, and I'm a podcast producer and a mum of two. I'm based down in Brighton. I have been working on podcasts and in kind of the podcasting world for about 6 years, but I've only been doing it as my main bread and butter and my full-time job for 2 years. My background is journalism. I think there might be someone entering. Right, let's see. Admit. Yeah, so that's how I started. My background is journalism, and I wrote for a lot of tabloids, and that might feel like it's completely counterintuitive and not necessarily anything to do with podcasting, but it actually is. Because what you'll find out when you start your podcast is that so much of it is about...
Got my glasses on.
I'm just going to mute you, Naomi. I hope that's okay. And hello and welcome.
So sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. It's not a problem.
Didn't quite realise. So sorry.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. It's not a problem at all. I was just saying before you joined, this is the first time I've ever used Google Meet. So it's a learning curve for me as well.
Cool.
So I'm going to try and do it. Mute. There we go. I think I can mute everyone myself. Yes. So I was basically just saying who I am, that I've been in podcasting for a long time, but how I started was in journalism, and how that lends itself to podcasting. It might seem totally random, but pulling out the story and learning to edit yourself and your podcast is incredibly important when it comes to podcasting. That's not what we're talking about today, though. Hello, Kirsty. Cool. I think everyone's muted now. So before we begin, that's something that I sort of touched on with the people that are already here, but sorry, I'm using 2 different computers. And so I keep getting confused between which one I'm using. Right, let's go back to before we begin. And let me see yeah, there we go. So for the people that are already here or joined at the beginning, I've already spoken about this, but I just want to repeat it again because it's important. I'm going to keep the space safe, obviously, but just be aware that I am recording this for you, but also because I may sell this workshop again. So you can have your cameras on, you can switch them off. It's totally up to you. Whenever I join workshops, I hate having my camera on because I look at myself and I make funny faces and it just distracts me. So you do whatever feels right for you, and use the chat kind of function throughout the workshop. Don't feel like you have to wait. There won't be a point where I say, right, give me all your questions. So use the chat function as much or as little as you want. I will only be checking it at the points that make sense for me to do that, but I will be checking it. I would easily lose my flow. I've got ADHD, so so that's why I'll only be checking in with it kind of periodically. There will be a workbook afterwards, so you don't have to write notes, but you're totally welcome to do so, and you will have access to these slides as well. And there are a couple of sections, 2 or 3 sections, where I'm going to give you a few minutes to reflect on some kind of prompts But again, these prompts will be available to you afterwards, because 2 or 3 minutes is not necessarily going to be enough time for you to delve into the questions that I'm asking you. So don't worry if you feel like you want to delve deeper and you don't feel like you've got enough time. So that's kind of a bit of admin. In terms of expectations, and I do think this is really important, what I'm telling you isn't rocket science, and you will almost certainly been told all of it before. You could definitely Google it. What I'm providing you here is a bit of a space to work through your podcast idea, and I want to help guide you to hone it into a workable niche so that you can head off, make all the decisions you need to make with a little bit more ease and clarity. Ultimately, I just want to help you to feel more confident around knowing your mission so that your podcast will be sustainable. Okay, let's just get into it then. Let's talk about niche. So a few myths around niche are that essentially that's the most important thing, and once you have an amazingly perfect and tight niche, that's it, that's all you need. Suddenly everything will become easier and people will just flood to you because they just understand what you're about. And despite what biz experts or people that want to sell you stuff might have you believe, I don't think that's true. So for a start, success is completely subjective, and it requires more than one star to align, because alongside timing, alongside your resources, your privilege, there's also a little bit of blind luck, your ability. Some folk have a really special source that means that they are just incredible at understanding what they need and how they can achieve it. Some people are really, really great at that specific thing. And those people, and I'm really generalizing here, but I hope it paints a picture that kind of resonates with you. Those people, particularly in online business, you'll often see growing their audience very quickly and achieving whatever goal it is that they want to achieve very quickly, and then telling you, hey, I can sell you this blueprint and it's going to tell you the exact steps that I did to get to where I am. And it's absolutely no shade on these people, because when you've done something for yourself, actually it's really, really satisfying to be able to help. You kind of almost want to help everybody do the same thing. You don't want people to go through the pain of trying and failing and whatever. And when something's really worked for you, it just feels really, really good to say, just copy me. Look, this is the exact thing that I did. I mean, it's really unlikely to work, because every single one of us has a completely unique set of abilities made up of a completely unique life experience and a totally unique life situation too, as well as having very different ideas of what success means. So you get the picture. Basically, I do not buy into blueprints at all. So I really wanted to talk about that straight away, because I think even the way that I've titled this workshop of Nail Your Podcast Niche, I want you to know that just nailing your podcast niche, I'm not telling you that that's going to make your podcast successful and that's the only thing that will help you do it. I know plenty of people, including me, who started their podcast without thinking about all of these things, and it's only going back and analysing that I realised, oh, okay, my niche was very, very clear, but I didn't plan it that way, and I still achieved the success that I wanted to achieve. Likewise, there will be people who, take all the courses or are very, very clear and have complete strategic, perfect branding and a really tight niche. They start with the end in mind, and they might not achieve what they want to achieve. So I hope that's not too much of a Debbie Downer for you, but I really thought it was important to start off with. Okay, so again, I told you this isn't rocket science, but I want to just reiterate, this is what niche is. And specifically as it pertains to podcasting. So it essentially means the word niche, and I say niche, not niche, because I'm not American. I don't understand why they say niche, but anyway, whatever. Niche means a specialist area that a group of people are interested in / want to buy / want to invest in. That's kind of all it means. Now, that specialist area could be really, really abstract. You could be your niche. I know that for many years, I was my niche. So if you think of lifestyle influencers who, their bread and butter comes from a group of people aspiring to be them or, to be like them, they are their niche. Within the broader category of fashion, lifestyle, home, etc., etc. And the idea that our niche should be kind of tidy and explicit enough to write in our bio. When I say that, I mean, I'm thinking of the formula of I'm Jane and I help insert dream client do the thing you teach through how you teach it. I mean, I use that in my bio too. I'm Lucy and I help whatever women do start podcasts through courses and one-to-one production, blah, blah, blah. It's great when you've got a limited set of characters, but I think it can really put us off, or, it can put a lot of people off, because when you look at that formula and you're like, no, but that doesn't make sense to me. I can't neatly fit myself into these little sections in this formula. Lots of us don't fit into that neat formula. So when I'm kind of what I'm trying to hammer home here is try and forget that sort of stuff, forget that stuff that you've heard, and that these stories that are probably in your head around niche. I definitely know, and I certainly was one of these people thinking quite negatively about niche and constantly saying, I don't have a niche, and I don't want a niche, I don't need a niche. And that didn't really help me. Just saying I didn't, niche, I almost personified niche as like a mean girl, a very cool club that I was never going to get into. And that is, I don't want you to think about it like that. And I really don't want you to think about this workshop as by the end of it, you're going to fit into some cool club that, you've never been able to fit into before. And using this very easy formula that I've given to you, boom, there, we've done it, because that is not what this is about. So, I'm not trying to make this into a therapy session, but let's unpick your niche story a little bit. So over the next 5 minutes, I would love you to linger on these questions, and you don't have to go through every single one of them in detail. Just try and not think too much. Just journal, I guess. So why are you starting your podcast? What do you believe your niche to be at the moment? Do you have one? Now, think of someone in your orbit. Maybe they might be within your kind of specialist area, or they might be someone who you just, someone that always pops up for you on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Someone that you perceive to have a tight niche. What is it, and why does it stand out to you? What's blocked you from honing into a tight niche? Because I'm guessing that, given that you're here, there's something that's blocked you. And if you don't know, that's okay. How would your goals change if you nailed your niche? I guess that should really say, how do you perceive your goals would change if you nailed your niche? And what I mean by that is, what do you think would happen when you nail your niche? And I don't want you to feel like you can't say something really, really grand or thought through. I know that for me, I used to think, if I nail my niche, I'm literally going to be so successful. I'm going to have millions of Instagram followers. I will be making I'm going to be doing those 10K months that people talk about. I genuinely believe that. And if you believe that too, that's like, I'm not laughing. I'm not trying to shit on that. I think, you know, that just be really, really honest about how do you perceive that your goals or your life would change if you nailed your niche. And the last one, you may, if you've already started a podcast, try and think about not necessarily the first episode, but the next episode after this workshop. If you haven't started your podcast, then you can literally think about your first episode. Imagine you published it yesterday. What's the title? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to linger on those.
Lucy, can you hear me? You're, I think you're muted, or
I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you, Naomi. Yes, I was just saying, I'm sorry, I know I haven't given you much time, but if anyone wants to hop on the chat and share some reflections of how the unpicking your niche story exercise was, or unmute yourself, or even hop onto camera and share, you absolutely don't have to. I think I've shared a few reasons why, when I started my podcast, some blocks that stopped me honing into a tight niche. And that was, one, I felt that it might limit me from my potential dream clients. I almost didn't trust myself to just pick a small group. I didn't want to limit myself. And a lot of that comes from my own personality of feeling rebellious. And like, no, you can't make me just talk about one thing. And another thing that I mentioned already was that I felt the people who I perceived to have very tight niches and effortlessly tight niches felt to me like not like me. They didn't look like me. They didn't have the same, I wasn't in the same tax bracket, silly things like that. And I have no idea what tax bracket these people are in. Perception is the key word there. And so I almost felt like having a tight niche wasn't for me, and I could never do it. It was something that people who they're just better at that sort of stuff, or maybe have more marketing knowledge, or just they were more businessy and just cleverer. So there was kind of a load of deeper things that blocked me from honing into a tight niche. That was probably the biggest block for me. So I don't know if that resonates with anyone else. I haven't written them all down yet, so a visual reminder would be helpful. Yes, sorry. Let me go back to presenting. I wish I wasn't trying to get my toddler to sleep to participate. Oh, Kirsty, I feel your pain so much. My daughter is downstairs watching CBeebies. Maybe sounds weird to say firstly, but sometimes I feel that I have to do it to stay relevant. However, I love having conversations and giving in-depth info, so I think it will also be fun. But a niche feels terrifying because I feel I have more to say than just one thing. Yes, Nancy, like I totally resonate. That's how I felt too. Like almost if I box myself into this, what if I get bored of it? What if I realize that's not the right thing? And it felt very much like boxing in. And I hope that I will, at the end of the workshop, you will feel like you will not be boxed in by a niche, because it's more a big misunderstanding of niche. Ali, I feel like, what if I don't have enough to say on the subject? Yeah, well, we're going to go into that too, but I think actually that's a really good indicator that that's not your niche. That's kind of a very clear indicator. But that can feel really hard, because what if your business is around that niche? Again, this is a misunderstanding of niche, I think. I feel like there's multiple things I'd like to talk about, and whether to be focused on the clients or want to talk about the broader topics I'm interested in. Yes. Yeah, I hear you, Kirsty. This is so dreamy, because I know that this is all of what you're saying, totally understandable. This is all a misunderstanding of niche, and specific, and very much pertaining to podcasting. And I'm not, when I say this, you've all got a misunderstanding of the word niche, I don't mean that to sound condescending, because yeah, that's exactly how I felt and can feel when it's about myself. Much easier when I'm looking at other people's stuff. The niche needs to serve and feed my business. Yes. What if I get it wrong and it doesn't serve my business? Yeah. Oh, Ali, yes. Really, really hard. Okay. I love all these reflections, because they make total sense. Right. Let me just switch to presenter mode so that you can see the prompts again. Is that how I did it? No, I want a tab. There we go. And I will obviously send you all of these afterwards. You'll have access to them, so you can go back to them. So moving on from that first exercise, and feel free to take a screenshot if you want to just kind of keep it, or take a picture with your phone or whatever, if you want to just continue to work on it while I'm chatting. Let's talk about passion. Regardless of whether this is, starting a podcast is a hobby, because it might be, or whether you already know it's a business venture, or both, which most of us kind of have turned our hobbies into businesses. The only thing standing between your podcast, your potential podcast, or your current podcast, and those on the market right now, people that you might consider successful, is that they're still going. That is it. That's the only difference between you and everybody that you see on your podcast app. And that's because they're sustainable. And what I mean by that is that they're still going. I don't mean sustainable in a kind of green eco way. I mean, they're going. They have sustained their podcast. The reason that matters is because podcasting can be an absolute beast. I'm sure you know this, but any time that you sign up to create content in a different way, it might, however easy someone says it is, it's kind of how long is a piece of string. It can be easy, it can be free, or it could be super complicated and really expensive. And most of us will end up falling on a scale in between the two. So although you can ostensibly do a lot of the tasks for free, and you can, and without much fuss, the reality is that you might not have the budget to outsource, your editing or some of the admin, like writing show notes or promoting. So what is going to give is time and, kind of crucially, your energy. And what is going to push you through when you can't be asked to sit down and record an episode? The only thing that's going to push you through is your passion. The fact that you have to do it, or it has been working and driving leads and doing whatever you wanted to do, actually isn't the thing that's going to push you through. It is your passion. And we've all heard that Confucius saying, choose a job you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life, right? This is kind of wildly misappropriated in pop culture, but the message rings true. Doing something you love means removing the barrier of effort, or at least kind of offsetting some of the effort. So at this stage, if you're worried your passion isn't clear, or I think more likely you might be worried at this stage, your passion isn't actually what you'd planned to podcast about, and potentially it won't serve your business because, for lots of different reasons. I want you to think a little less obviously. And I'm really hoping the exercise coming up is going to help you frame your passion and podcasting in a different light. And again, I really want to hammer home that I didn't do any of these things when I started. It's very much do as I say, not as I do. But what I'm bringing to the table here is like kind of a lot of self-awareness of looking back at how my podcast worked out, and my experience bringing lots and lots of clients' podcasts to life, or empowering people to do it themselves through courses, even DM chats, workshops. I've run lots of them. I've helped a lot of people. So please know that when I tell you to think about all of this stuff, I know that it's not easy. And I also know that even if you don't do any of these things and you just think, you're talking a load of crap, I'm just going to do what I want, that's not going to guarantee or ruin your success. Do you know what I'm saying? So straight into another exercise, and I'm going to give you a little bit longer for this one. And you might also want to go back to the original one. And I will leave the slides up so that you can see them. There we go. So the second exercise, what do you love to do in your free time, or that you do even if you weren't getting paid for it? And please don't think about anything outside of your goals. Don't think about the first exercise even. Don't think about what you wrote for, don't think about anything apart from just the literal questions. And I know this isn't easy. It's a lot easier for me because I'm autistic, but I know it's not easy. Number two, what do people regularly tell you you're good at? Or what do people regularly say? Oh my goodness, I love it when you talk about this. I love hearing you talk about this. Number three, what would you love your podcast to help you do? Example, make more money, have more time at home, connect with experts in your niche, for example. Okay, I'm sorry to have to stop sharing, but I want to make sure that we have enough time to kind of go through all of your answers, and I want to have make sure that I have enough time to speak to each of your specific niches. Um, Ali, I have two wildly different answers to question one, which says a lot about my business split. Interesting. If you're comfortable sharing, I'd love to hear more. Kirsty, creativity is my general forever passion, maybe self-expression. I'm a designer professionally, an illustrator and artist for fun, and a tiny bit of money in the past. But I tried to focus on it. It'd be nice if a podcast would help me make money, but I definitely like to ask people questions and connect. Okay. So if you're comfortable, Kirsty, I'd love to talk, to dig into this a little bit. So creativity is your general forever passion. maybe self-expression. But what could you talk about all day long? And what do you wish that you were talking about all day long, even if we're not talking, not necessarily specific to podcasting, just thinking, if me and you could sit and chat, what do you wish that we would chat about? And Ali, yeah, I'd love to hear the wildly different answers to question one, because I know Ali's business very well. So I know Ali a lot. So yeah.
Do you want to talk to me? You know, I'll talk forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course I have a split in my business I created myself, in that I took part of my business more towards the interiors, creative interiors things that I do for influencer work. And I used to sort of have more of a creative photography, and sort of teach creativity. And then I split that part of it out to become more of creative coaching, social media, content marketing coaching, and all the nuances that go behind creating content that feeds and serves your business or serves your projects, whether they're personal or business, but usually there's a business element involved. And those two things are completely different. And I have split it out now completely. And so I can talk about both things almost. I could talk about interiors until the cows come home, but I can also talk about the other thing. And maybe, I mean, that's the thing that I would podcast about, and that I've always thought that I would podcast about. And that's the thing that I can see would feed me in a monetary way, which would be my reason for starting a podcast. It wouldn't be for the hobby of it. Mine would be strategically for my business, to inspire people, encourage people, and also bring in potentially clients or people that would be course sign-ups. But they are two very, very different things.
I think it's really interesting because I don't think they are two very different things at all. I think you have a very clear niche. I think it's so incredibly clear. And when you separated out your accounts, I totally understood why, because from a tidiness in your brain point of view, sometimes that has to happen. I don't think the two are different at all, because to me, yes, your interiors stuff and, you know, creating content around DIY in your home and like glow ups and things like that, yeah, technically that's different to you giving Instagram tips or sharing how to do really, really creative things on your phone. But the thread to me is that A, it's for a very specific type of person, and B, it's with a specific, I don't want to say vibe, but you are 100% all about accessible creativity.
Yes.
For both
sides of my business. Yes. Yeah. 100%.
And so I think that if you started a podcast or if you merged your accounts back together, you're serving the same people.
Yeah.
You really are. Like some people aren't going to be ever booking you. But those people are still really interested in what you do.
Yeah.
And those people, a lot of them, reality is that we're all completely multifaceted. So I'm really interested in both strands of your business, and I will use both sides, as in I will look at the stuff that you've done in your kitchen and be like, oh, I really want to do that too. That's amazing. Let me reference some of the, some of your ads, for example. I would definitely be the person who might be clicking through and buying the stuff that you link to, as well as being somebody who has bought your courses, who has hired you, who listens to your tips. And oh, hi, Kat.
If I'm on a video call, a cat's always turning up.
So to me, I think I don't think you need to separate that out in your brain, because I think your passion isn't, it's not that your passion is one or the other. Your passion is being really creative and helping other people be creative in the way that they physically can do that, in an accessible, like really approachable way.
And of course, working on the inside of the influencer world, I get the other side of it. So I'm not just doing it from the with my marketing head on, but I get to do it from the, when you are an influencer and how that works and how to pitch to brands, because I'm doing it from the inside on my interiors account, because I'm literally having to do that side of it as well.
Yeah.
Which, when you're a small business and you might want to, you know, when you need to reverse engineer that and approach influencers, there's like a whole different process for that as well. So, okay, I know I've got the content. I'm just getting the exact niche and not going too far out one way and too far out the other way. That's my worry with it. Kat, oh sorry.
But again, I mean, that's the worry of veering outside of the niche. That's because you're still thinking that your niche has to be something almost tangible, really obvious. It has to fit into an Instagram bio, or like it can't just, anyhow, we could talk about this for a lot. We will talk about this more. Kirsty, my illustration and design, I like to do both for fashion and lifestyle. So that's what you would want to, so tricky. You would, if we were chatting together, small business stuff, maybe turning passion into business, female entrepreneurs, perhaps. So the maybes and the perhaps tell me that that's not necessarily your passion. Interesting. Okay. Well, there's a lot to think on there. But I hope that chat with Ali, thank you for sharing, Ali. I hope that helped some of you as well. Let me go back to presenting, because I am conscious that I would like to just constantly chat to you all. I have to keep remembering how to present. A tab. We've done our reflections. Oh, one thing that I want to say, or maybe now is not the right time to say it, but I think this will help a little bit. So I'm going to give you an example. And this is something that I found when I was kind of looking on Pinterest. It was someone talking about how they discovered their niche. So their first businesses was selling Christmas tree storage boxes. While I wasn't exactly passionate about the product, I was passionate about running a successful business and helping my audience find the perfect product. So I hope that you can see there that the passion isn't necessarily the Christmas tree storage boxes or even having a business. It was the result of having that business. Okay, so here's some more examples, because really right now we want to be thinking of, sorry, I'm really bad at multitasking. Okay, so I want to be thinking about some actual examples, not formulas necessarily, but things that we can, you know, I think sometimes you do need to see a formula. I want to give you examples of things that you can't necessarily stick in your online bio or quote in an elevator pitch. So, number one, your business is selling sheds online. Your knowledge is marketing and your passion is sea swimming. Your business allows you to work your own hours and sea swim whenever you like. So you can see there's a combination of kind of passion and knowledge in this example. Number two, your knowledge is in CRM software, you know, something like Dubsado, and your goal is to showcase your services because you want to drive leads to your business. Your passion is nature. So you record simple CRM tips while walking in your favorite spots. So that's pretty abstract, but it's a niche. Number 3, you're a late diagnosed AUDHDer, and your business is content creation. You are growing an online community of neurodivergent people through podcast episodes with hacks and helpful mindfulness exercises. I almost said mindlessness exercises, not that. Again, I don't think this is necessarily easy to stick in a bio. But you can see there that the knowledge, I guess, is in your own neurodivergence. The passion is helping other people find resources and have a community. And so, yeah, your passion and knowledge might not be in mindfulness exercises or in ADHD neurodivergent strategies. However, when your passion is serving a community who probably at one stage were just like you, and so doing those things that aren't necessarily your specialist knowledge, and that's your passion. Okay, so I'm really running over and I'm so sorry. I'm going to try and slightly whiz through this. Number 3, my specialist subject is, and this one is going to be a little bit easier, I think, to nail down. So the second factor in the niche formula is your specialist knowledge. Lots of people mistake their niche to just be the specialist knowledge. But this is a mistake because A, what you know isn't who you are. And B, what you know doesn't necessarily define your mission or your values. There are lots of people in the business coaching world, but how their clients find them and know that they're the right coach for them is very rarely down to their specialist knowledge. And we know that because, particularly in the coaching world, heaps of them don't have any specialist knowledge as such. They certainly don't have qualifications. I mean, some people do. But what actually happens is that their passion is kind of the prism that we see them through, which is to say, your specialist knowledge is your foundation and your passion is the filter that that specialist knowledge passes through to reach the people that you want to reach. And I'm specifically not necessarily saying buyers or fans or customers, because I know that not all of you will necessarily be wanting to drive sales. That might not be your ultimate goal. So let's put it together a little bit. When it comes to podcasting, your specialist knowledge will be framed by your podcasting goals. And your goal might be as easily definable as, cover the podcast running costs, like break even, or increase client leads, or grow your email list. But it could be something more abstract, like increasing my brand awareness, cement authority, or like in the example that I gave, the neurodivergent example I gave, create a community of XYZ enthusiasts, or it could actually be, and I have heard this a lot, and certainly this was the case for me, it could just be, I really want to try out creating audio content because actually I'm really bored of social media and I want to create content in a different way. So it's kind of a bit of a two-parter then. So if you know your specialist knowledge already, and Kirsty, you already do, Ali, you do too, probably a lot of the rest of you might already know exactly what your specialist knowledge is, then great. If not, start off by defining your podcast goals. And it's another exercise. So number 3, this is the last exercise, I promise. And I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes for this as well. In fact, I might even just give you a minute to just jump into this. Okay, I know I've given you literally like 10 seconds of this. I really want to make sure that I can speak to anybody that wants to chat. Yeah, how did everyone get on with this last quickfire exercise? I think the TED Talk one can sometimes be a bit wishy-washy, but I hope you get the picture of where I was trying to get to this, or with this, sorry. Ali, I really relate to the experimenting with audio content. There's a part of me that has this voice, and I don't feel I have the platform anymore now. IG stories are useless. Yes, exactly. So sometimes it is just a case of I need to / want to try something else out. 1, design. 2, e-com website designs. 3, I just feel drawn to the idea, even though speaking isn't my natural. Ah, okay. So, Kirsty, it sounds to me like you're very comfortable in what you do, but what you talk about or what people would want to listen to is the kind of block for you. I might be overstepping there. And that is common. I hear that a lot, of who's going to want to talk to me, or who's going to want to listen to me. Sorry, who would even listen to what I have to say? Like, I don't even know anything. Nancy, I really like this exercise. Great. I still see 2 different themes, one for my business, one for my passion, but now I see a way of pairing them together. Ah, I'm so happy. I'm really happy. That's exactly what I hoped would happen. It's not easy. And yeah, it's not easy. Especially because, I mean, I'm guessing you all found me through social media in some way, shape, or form, and it's so noisy. It's such a noisy space, that I think it can really be hard to, like, even know what you like to wear. I found this particularly with interiors content. I had to really almost take things back to basics and be like, oh, do I actually like mid-century furniture, or is this just, have I just been brainwashed? Anyhow, your head is probably a little bit full right now, but I really encourage you to just start before you're ready. And don't worry if right now you still don't know what your niche is, you still couldn't define it. You know, starting a podcast is really low stakes, and you can easily tweak things along the way. You know, your cover art can change multiple times. You're not going to be penalized by anyone. And I'm here for you to hit me with any questions until 1 p.m., which is 2 minutes. So I think we can go a bit longer than that. So let me stop presenting so you can see my face. I can't see my face. Oh, now I can. I'm very shiny still. Naomi, yes, I really like the idea of experimenting with audio content and learning how to edit and podcast while I run my own business. I don't necessarily want to do this to drive more customers or signups. Agree. 1 is for business and 1 is to learn more, to be able to do more around podcasting. That's such a good goal, is just to learn a new skill, which is the skill of podcasting. And experimenting with audio content and learning how to podcast opens you up to learn actually a lot of different skills. Through my business, I have an audience already there, but taking the first step is definitely scary. Yeah. Oh, yes, software. Alitu is great. It is essentially an all-in-one platform, and it's by somebody called the Podcast Host, who has been podcasting for years and years and years and years. He's great. Alitu and Riverside are slightly different, but you can do the same things with them. You can end-to-end it with Alitu, like you can record, you can edit, you can publish. So it's like an all-in-one sort of option. Riverside, you can do some of those things, but not all of them. I have used both. The software that I use and any kind of software that I recommend, if you're somebody, and it sounds like you're somebody who really like wants to learn about podcasting, I would recommend Audacity for editing. It's incredible and it's free. I would recommend Acast for hosting. They are also free and they're great. Those would be my two recommendations. Then Libsyn are incredible. Captivate is amazing, but it's a bit more spenny, and that's just for hosting. But they have some really, really great features, and they really focus on podcast growth. So if your goal is to make money, then and you have budget, then Captivate is something that I would recommend. Nancy, I have a question. Sometimes whether I should podcast in my own language because you're Dutch or in English. For example, for YouTube, you absolutely see that people are more drawn to English because everyone in the world can listen to or view it. However, I'm afraid I might not articulate my thoughts as well. Yeah. Well, my thoughts on this would be, who are your ideal listeners? And what do they want to hear? If 100% of your listeners are English, then speaking in English is kind of a no-brainer. If it's more of a case of you just want to try something new, you just want to try podcasting, that's a really difficult one, because I think it actually does really matter who your ideal listeners are. I don't think, even though it flows easier in your mother tongue, I don't think it's a hurdle that could be got past. However, you could do both. Yeah, well, I think I haven't used Reaper, so I can't speak to it, or I couldn't recommend it or not. The end-to-end piece, in theory, it's easier, but I don't necessarily think in practice it is. So Alitu is something that is made by and for, or it's made by techie men. So there are things within it that are just unnecessary. But if you're the sort of person that's really into that, and the second thing I would say is, if you want to learn about podcasting and learn about editing, then I wouldn't recommend an end-to-end, because there will be limitations. I use Adobe Audition, but obviously that's because it's for my business and I have to do kind of more advanced audio engineering. But you can also use it with just the basic functions. It's just that you're going to be paying kind of 30 quid a month. Yeah, I would say just try a few things out. Like loads of them do free trials. Yeah. Oh, I also wanted to say that I sort of forgot to say, is that I am going to share in your kind of student space a link to my Slack community, and it's just for like podcast clients, basically. So in there you can Slack away and ask me any questions that you need to ask. You can also connect with other podcasters. I think only one of my clients is in there. So there's not like it's not a big community, but that's where you'll get the most direct and kind of immediate access to me. Yes, Nancy. Yeah. I think both is a good way, especially starting out in recording your episodes in Dutch, just to kind of find your flow a bit, because even when you're recording in your mother tongue, it's still going to feel a bit different if you've never recorded audio before. Yeah, and you do just get better at the start. I mean, I'm not a natural public speaker. It's not my thing at all. I get really, really nervous, and I don't enjoy it. But somehow podcasting just feels really comfortable. So even if you feel at the moment that's like something in your head that you don't like, that you're not like, you know, that maybe it won't flow, maybe that's something you have in your head. Now, I only speak one language, so I can't even imagine like how you do it, how you switch between the two languages. But I would encourage you to don't worry too much. Do I recommend trying to film or focus on record? Just focus on the audio, definitely. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say focus on the audio. You can always film as well. Like a lot of tools like Zencastr, I mean, almost all of them will record, a bit like in Zoom, they'll record audio and video, and you don't necessarily have to use both, because obviously it's going to be two separate files. So even if you record both and then don't use both, at least you have them there. I think it's really difficult because some people, especially if they're recording interviews, prefer having the face-to-face so that it feels like a conversation, it flows better, and you don't necessarily interrupt each other as much because you can use your, you know, body language and what have you. I sometimes find that it's the opposite for me. I feel more focused if I don't have the visual of someone else there, if I can just hear them. So I think just knowing your own preferences is ideal. Okay, I'm going to head off. Thank you so much. I can't tell you how overwhelmed I was by how many people showed up, and yeah, because you just never know. And like I say, I'm not much of a public speaker, so always really freaks me out, and having the technology as well. Thank you for being patient with me and just for being here. I really appreciate it. Oh, that makes me so happy. I'm so glad that you feel more confident now, Nancy. You should all feel really confident because you've all got interesting things to say. Even just our short transactions in this chat, I really want you to know that you should trust yourself and your voice, and that you've got something to say, and someone will want to listen. They just will. I definitely will. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Ali. Cool. Okay, so yeah, in I think 48 hours, maybe sooner, if I'm very efficient, there'll be the replay and slides and workbook and all the rest of it in your student area in Thrivecart. And there'll be the link to the kind of Slack channel. My email is always open to you, so if you have any questions, if you want to ask anything at all, well, related to podcasting, please do. Yeah, that's it. Have a great rest of Monday, and thank you for joining me today.